Hey, Steven here. In this video we're going to be looking at the curve tool and then also using extrude with it. So in the previous video we looked at the different types of curves. So in this one it's kind of down to you which curve tool you want to use. I'm just going to use the standard CV curve tool. I've got it on my custom bar. Otherwise create curves, CV curve, and then I've just got it on its default settings. Then what I'm going to do is just create just sort of a random shape to work with. So I've created my curve points and then I've hit enter to confirm it. What we're going to do now is, in the previous video we just looked at making the curve and that was kind of it. In the next videos we're going to be looking at different ways of actually using these curves. So this first video is extruding geometry along a curve we've created. So we've got our curve, we've made a kind of shape, we've extracted it from geometry or whichever way you want to make it, and then what we're going to do is extrude a new piece of geometry across it. The way this works is slightly different from previous versions, so when we kind of get there I'll say the sort of the main difference. So what we need is now a piece of geometry, so it's completely up to you depending on what you're making. So a simple shape we're just going to start with is a cylinder. Right, so we've got our cylinder. One thing we want to be careful with is we're going to be extruding this along the curve, and it's going to need divisions as it goes around to keep the shape. So depending on what this is going to be used for, we may need to lower our subdivs, otherwise this one curve will be a very high poly object. So I'll just set it for 10 now, and then we can see kind of how high poly it is after. So what we want to do is go to faces, and we want to delete all the faces just so we have one end left. Right, the way it's different from previous versions is you used to be able to just select the geometry, select the curve and hit extrude, and it would do a basic extrude that you would then kind of edit after. It no longer really does that. Even if you increase the divisions, it doesn't sort of do anything. What we have to do now is select the object in face mode, select all the faces we want to extrude, then select the curve, then hit extrude. What it will do by default is just jump from the starting point right to the end. And what we need to do is, you've got this box here, but basically we need to increase the amount of divisions. And one thing to be careful with, I've kind of left out here so we can see at first, it will go from where our geometry starts and then snap to the curve. So what you normally want to do is move the geometry and kind of get it roughly going the right way of the curve. So I've kind of put it roughly here at the start. If I now go to faces, select, so shift, select the curve and edit mesh and extrude. By default it should recognize that you're going to extrude along a curve, so you shouldn't have to worry about those settings. And then what it will do, like I said, is just jump straight to the end. So the next thing we need to do is increase divisions. Depending on the version you may not have this box, so it's on the right, you scroll down and there's divisions, so we can click it and middle mouse drag. So you kind of increase the divisions till you're happy. It will only drag to 25, but you can set it as high as you want. You just have to type the values in. So that's a kind of standard extrude along a curve. We can do more advanced things with this, so I'm going to go back to my beginning. So what we can do is, with our piece of geometry, we can duplicate this and select both of these, combine. In a later video I'll go through all the different combine and separates in detail, but if we combine these, center pivot again, and then line it up how we want it, we can then extrude both of these across our curve. So same again, up the division so it follows it. So now we've got basically two pipes, two cylinders following it. So what we can now do this, because we've got two, sort of technically two pieces of geometry going over it, in the outliner, we have things like twist. So we can add, this is done by degrees, so it's not how many twists, it's the degrees of the twist. So at the moment it's only doing half a twist. So we may want to set this to something like 1,000. And then what we get when we smooth is kind of a sort of wire look. So we can do this with as many different objects as we want. We can just extrude them all across and then twist them, or we have other options like taper. So it will go from the start down to thin or thick. The other thing is the geometry has to be placed at the start of the curve. So I started my curve here and then went round. So my geometry has to be at the beginning point and then extrude it across. So what we can then do is, if we say marquee the whole thing and then control and deset the geometry, we'll be left with the curve. The other way is you can just grab the curve in the outliner by itself. Either way kind of works. And then what we can do is right click, control vertex, and because this geometry is bound to this curve, we can then reshape the geometry to kind of better fit what we need. So I can then kind of change the shape around of it. I can put it where I want and kind of get a better result. When I'm then done, I can delete the history on it, and then this curve has become completely separate, and we can edit it however we want, and it will have no effect on the geometry. So this is one of the things that I was talking about with deleting the history. You have to be careful. If you delete all by type and you wanted to keep this, you'd no longer be able to edit this object. So that's a standard curve with an extrude. In the next video we're going to look at curves and revolve. See that?